This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Is NATO falling apart? And if so, why? And why is it that we can confidently proclaim that it will fall apart? In fact, it's already falling apart. It's for the same reason, as we have said in the past, that there's going to be a Brexit, that Great Britain will leave the EU. Before I explain further, I'd like to just briefly summarize what happened this week. Because this week you had the 70th anniversary of the existence of NATO. And Deutsche Welle wrote on December 3, US President Donald Trump kicked off a tense two-day NATO summit on Tuesday by criticizing French President Emmanuel Macron's comment about the brain death of the military alliance. Speaking to the press on the summit's sidelines, Trump called Macron's comments nasty, insulting, and very dangerous, adding that nobody needs NATO more than France. Trump said that he could see France breaking off from NATO, and then he reiterated his call for European partners to increase defense spending, calling out Germany in particular for falling short. Now then the French president told reporters he stands by his brain death comments, even if they shook up a lot of people. Macron pointed out that the 29 NATO members have different definitions of what constitutes terrorism. He called on Turkish leaders to clarify their position at this summit, saying, "They now are fighting against those who fought with us, and sometimes they work with ISIS proxies." Well, President Trump actually said a lot more than what was reported here by Deutsche Welle. He had been highly critical of NATO himself in the past, and at a press conference with Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he said it wasn't fair that Germany had not been paying its fair share in all the previous years, saying that they owe much money to the United States. Also, he said if they do not deliver, then tariffs will be imposed on German cars. He said, "We have the better cards." And he also said, and that's very interesting, that Germany should pay much more than what they have presently agreed to, i.e. 2%. He felt they should at least pay 4%. And when asked whether the United States would defend a NATO ally when attacked, he answered this way: "That is a good question." And then he continued with complaints about the failure of some NATO allies to pay their fair share, of course, including and especially Germany. Now, Deutsche Welle reported on December 4 that then on Wednesday, NATO leaders agreed on the importance of mutual defense. We reaffirm the enduring transatlantic bond between Europe and North America and our solemn commitment as enshrined in Article 5 of the Washington Treaty that an attack against one ally should be considered an attack against us all, they said in a joint statement. But in light of what I've just explained to you, one has to really question how serious that reaffirmation of NATO leaders really is. And so we can clearly tell that a deep, deep rift exists amongst some of NATO members, which will lead to a breakup. It is inevitable. But there's another reason why it is inevitable. First of all, politicians are very conscious as to what the people feel because they understand it's the people who vote them into office and out of office. In that light, Politico wrote on December 3, "To the extent that US citizens think about NATO at all, they disagree about whether honoring its commitments would be worth the sacrifice. This wavering commitment likely signals a belief that American protection is no longer necessary for European security, or that the United States has different priorities from when NATO was created 70 years ago. And then they say NATO is in the midst of an existential crisis. And so they echo what Macron has said. For all practical purposes, NATO is dead. In Germany, the situation looks even much worse. Express wrote on December 2 that YouGov quizzed voters in the UK, in France, in Germany, the United States, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, about their attitudes toward the NATO alliance. Germans object to the possibility of defending the United States from attack by 32%. In stark contrast to the 54% of Americans think that they should defend Germany should it find itself besieged. In France, the support for defending the United States was even much less. And then on the wider issue of supporting NATO in general, in France just 9% of those asked strongly support the alliance. In the case of Germany, strong support has plummeted down to 22%. Okay, what that means is that people don't believe in the survival of NATO, in the necessity of NATO. And that is part of the reason why NATO is doomed to fail. But there is more to it. There is more to it because, on the other hand, Germany, according to Deutsche Welle, dated November 29, the German parliament has passed a record budget for 2020. It will include Germany's ever largest military budget amounting to some $45 billion, with extra money specifically earmarked for the Bundeswehr's overseas missions and NATO commitments. But of course, this is under Angela Merkel. The coalition party, the SPD, was already very upset about this. The parliamentary group leader Ralf Mützenich said his party would not blindly support the German urge for military dominance. But the Grand Coalition will probably fall apart. They have just, in the SPD, voted in two left liberal leaders, completely opposed to the survival of the Grand Coalition. Angela Merkel's days are numbered, and she will have to either step down, if she can even survive until the next elections, and then another leader will come, and we'll have to wait and see what position that leader is going to take. Now, of course, while the party by Angela Merkel, the CDU, is losing support, and also the SPD is clearly losing support, there are two parties which gain support in Germany. One is the Green Party, an anti-Semitic party for all practical purposes, and the other one is the AfD, which is a right-wing party. We all probably have heard about it, and they get more and more votes. And so it's very interesting to see what is going to happen. But the reason why NATO will have to be history pretty soon, and the reason why England or Great Britain or the United Kingdom will depart from the EU is that the Bible prophesies us very clearly that a war will take place between the United States, Great Britain, maybe Israel on the one hand, and continental Europe on the other. So they couldn't possibly be part of a NATO coalition. They couldn't also be, insofar, part of Britain being part of the EU. All of that is prophesied. And it's going to happen very swiftly. And the Bible tells you so. And we have prepared a free booklet, Europe in Prophecy. And you should read that booklet if you haven't already done so, because it shows you from the pages of the Bible what's going to happen. And why Brexit will take place. And why NATO will be a thing of the past within a very few years from now. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.